What's our episode about today?
Love.
Love, bass love,
Mm-hmm.
because it's May, and it's in a lot of the country. It's love is in the air for bass,
Okay.
and it's time to sight fish. And guys, I'm telling you, there are some specific things that I want to share when it comes to actually being able to catch fish off beds. And I think these are some pretty, I don't know that everybody knows them. So stick around, guys. We'll be back, and we're going to talk about sight fishing
Woo-hoo. And love.
and love when we come back. Welcome back to Mark Fisher Outdoors, everybody. I'm Mark Fisher.
I'm Megan Fuller.
All right, so we're talking about sight fishing, bed fishing.
Okay.
We did an episode before, with the squirt gun and getting the pollen off, and we kind of touched on, sight fishing. It's coming up.
Mark, before we talk about love, we would love if you guys would subscribe to our channel.
I like the way you worked
Did you
that
see?
in.
Did you see what I did there?
I
Did you
saw
see what I
that.
did
Yeah,
there?
that was good.
Yeah. So please subscribe to the channel, like the video or love the video, and please give us your comments and what you think, and other potential topics you would like to see covered, because we get a lot of our video ideas from you guys. So.
Absolutely. All right, so talking about bed fishing and sight fishing. There's probably three things that I would talk about when it comes to fishing for a fish that is on a bed. And Megan, I don't know if you know a whole lot about it, but if I'm going down, say, a canal, for example, and I'm looking, the first key part that I think everybody knows, you got to have polarized glasses so that you can see through the water and see the fish. And the biggest thing that I would say, and that it took me a while to learn, is you don't look for the fish, because you will miss a lot of fish if you're looking for a fish in the water.
So what do you look for?
You look for the black tail and the black movement. If you see that black tail, a lot of times, all you have, it's kind of like when you remember that puzzle, when you stare at the puzzle and you look at it, and then all of a sudden you see the witch or whatever it is.
Yeah, you kind of blur your eyes.
Right.
Yeah, I love those.
If you're looking for the black tail in the water and you go, oh, wait a minute, and then you focus, oh, that's the fish. I see the whole fish now. But to try and look for the whole fish, again, it's like looking for a deer in the woods. You can't see a whole deer, but when you see either the white tail or the horizontal back, now all of a sudden you can,
it kind of appears.
It appears, right.
Like magic.
So number one, look for the black tail. Now you've seen the fish. What happens is the fish has, with its tail, has cleared out an area, usually a harder bottom. So you might have seaweed or weeds and things like that, and all of a sudden you've got an area that's sand or pebbles or rocks, and that's where the female is going to lay the eggs. Okay? And the male will guard that area. So that doesn't mean, sometimes the male sits right on the bed. And so in that situation, the fish is pretty easy to spot, because you've got this clean spot and you got a fish right on top of it. But that doesn't happen all the time. It doesn't happen most of the time. Usually the male is sitting off to the side. So it might be easy with your polarized glasses to see the bed, but you don't see a fish on it. But now if you're looking for the tail, and there it is, it's off to the side there, and now I see the fish. He's positioned so he's looking at the bed, but he's off over here. Okay. So the first thing in that situation, when you see the fish, you got the bed, and you see that fish is near the bed, you might toss a bait in. I typically toss something, usually a little 4-inch Cinco, a smaller one.
Okay.
And what I'm doing at that point is I just want to see how that fish reacts. There are times when you throw that fish is not on the bed, he's sitting there looking at it, and you throw a bait in, and he will get that Cinco before it slowly falls to the bottom. He'll come in, get it, and boom, you're there. That's a one-timer, okay? There's other times when you throw in, and that fish was looking, and the minute you throw in, he takes off. I mean, he's gone. And now the question is, where'd he go? It's like, did he go to another state, or did he swing around and just come back and now he's looking at your bait from a different angle?
Mm-hmm.
If he does that, that fish is catchable.
Okay.
Not super easy, but he's catchable. The one that took off down the canal, you can pretty much go, okay,
He's gone.
He's not. I will sit there and just see, because sometimes they can go 20 feet, turn around, they'll come back, and then you want to do it again and see if they leave again, or if it was just the one time and now they get curious and they kind of get. So I don't take off right away, but I'm not optimistic when that fish takes off a long way, and it depends how long it takes for him to come back. But now that fish that just spins around, does a little lap, and then he's back to looking, okay. So now the next step is, I want to see if I can't get that fish agitated, okay? Now, if the fish is coming, so I throw a bait in, does the fish move towards? Does he swim around again and come to a new position and look? If that's the case, I'm going to throw a couple of different baits and see if I can't find something that's going to bring. He's not leaving. He's locked, but he's not really coming in. So a Cinco didn't work, so maybe a jig or a tube that sits on the bottom. That's something that I'm going to look at. And then if not, I'm going to take a little drop shot, but not a normal drop shot that's like 3 feet, literally only a couple inches, where the weight's on the bottom and the bait itself is just hovering. So now I've got a bait that isn't falling onto the bed, that's not sitting on the bottom, but it's actually swimming over the top of the bed and staying above the bed. That, a lot of times, is the thing that will trigger that fish to move in and and go for that bait. This is where, remember we did an episode on the free rig where it waited and it floated back up? We did an Underwater Wednesday episode on that. This is where I would use that free rig to see if that doesn't get that fish to go. Now, let's say I've got a fish that's on the bed, but I throw something in there and he just kind of turns, like sometimes like what you do. I make advances and you just kind of do this. You don't leave, you just kind of do this.
I'm not in the mood.
It does happen every once in a while.
Yeah.
Okay. So what, as an angler, what I'm going to do is the same thing. I'm going to bother. Okay. And that's why you guys can relate to this, I think.
Yeah, I can remember. Yeah.
I'm going to poke. And that's what I'm going to do with the fish. If the fish sits there.
Great strategy.
But with fishing, it works real well, to be honest. Well, actually.
With women, it does not.
Actually, to be honest, the same thing happens with the fish as what happens with you. I'm going to put. So that fish is on the bed. And it's locked on the bed. But when I throw bait there, he just kind of goes, nah. He doesn't leave the bed. He just kind of turns away from it. So I'm going to take my bait and I'm going to run it into his tail. I'm going to run it into his mouth. I'm not trying to snag him or anything like that. I'm just trying to poke him. Yeah. Because what you're going to see happen is when you hit his tail, shoom, he's going to swing back around and go, what was that? Just like you do when I go like this. And you're going to go, knock it off. What are you doing? Okay, right? Yes. Stop it. Okay? He's going to swing around and say, stop it. And if you do that and he looks and he gets angry at it but doesn't eat it, you throw in again, swing around and hit his tail the next time. And he'll swing around and go, I told you to knock it off. And sure enough, you can literally agitate those bedded fish. They're locked on the bed, They're protecting the bed, and if you agitate them enough, one of those times they will swing around and bite. Kind of like what you do.
I will swing around and kick you out of the
snap.
bed.
Right.
Kick you out of the bed.
And so that's what happens, guys. So that's the second strategy. You know, we've talked about the glasses and looking for the tail. We talked about the drop shot, but you will literally pester that fish to get that fish to bite if it's locked on that bed like that. So the third thing has to do with kind of a combination. Every bedfish is different, and I guess the bottom line is you have to read the body language of the fish. Sometimes you'll have some that are locked on.
Right.
Other times you'll have one that you throw bait in and it leaves and never comes back. And then there are the in-betweeners.
The fickle fish?
Yeah, and quite honestly, they're in between because they're not necessarily guarding eggs that have been laid already, but they still are waiting. And so they'll come back within 10 seconds, they'll come back to the bed. But they'll be a little shy, and you toss a bait in, and they'll take off again. But they don't take off forever. You know, within 10 seconds, they're back again. So those aren't fish that you can start pestering, because the minute you toss something in, they're going to go.
Okay.
But you can keep tossing in and seeing if that 10 seconds doesn't turn into 6 seconds. Doesn't turn into a quick turnaround kind of thing. That's what I would do, is I would toss in, oh, that fish took off. 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 7, 1,000, 8, 1, there he is, he's back. Okay, let me do it again. See if I can't get, you know, is it continuing is it going longer? Or is it getting shorter? If it's going longer, I'm done. I'm moving on.
Right.
If it's getting shorter, I'm just going to keep doing it until I get that to be where he's just flipping around and going. Because you can read that fish and know if it's getting longer, we're done. Right. But if it's getting shorter, keep doing it. You'll get to the point where you can get them to go.
Okay.
The final thing that I want to make sure everybody knows, and I don't think this is, when I've been saying, hey, I'm going to toss my bait into the bed, okay? And I want to make sure that I'm being clear on this. If the bed is here, I'm never tossing my bait, boom, right in it.
Into it. Okay.
What I'll do is, you know, assuming that it works out right, if the fish is over here, for example, I'm going to toss my bait farther than the bed, work my bait to the bed. The last thing I want is for a fish to be sitting here on a bed and me to drop a bait 2 inches above their head. The splash itself is going to startle them and do that. Now I might throw the bait, like let's say that 4-inch Cinco, might throw the bait 2 feet past the bed, keep my rod tip high and bring that bait along the surface so that it never gets until it gets to the surface there and then starts to sink. But I don't want to splash my bait down right on the bed. Okay. So I'm usually casting beyond the bed and then bringing my bait into the bed.
That's a good clarifier.
And as I'm saying that, I got one more thing too. Sorry. That bed that I talked about that's cleared out, there will always be one spot on the bed that is the actual sweet spot of the bed. And it's not always in the middle of the bed. Sometimes you get this perfect circle and right in the middle you go, that's the sweet spot. Other times it's like off to the side or just a little somewhere, you know, off to the side. The sweet spot of the bed, you can tell again, it's watching body language. When your bait is over here, the fish could care less. And then all of a sudden your bait gets to this little notched out area over on the side.
Like a little pocket?
Yeah, a little pocket or whatever. And all of a sudden the fish is like, whoa, what's going on? And he spins around. Or all of a sudden, you know, it's going across the entire bed and he's sitting over there in the weeds looking. But then it gets to that little pot and he moves on to the bed. Now he's told you something. That's the sweet spot. So now that's the part that that's where I'm gonna agitate that fish the most. When my bait's over here on that part, he doesn't really care that much. But when he's in there, that's the part that he's worried, because that's probably where the eggs are actually going to be laid or have been laid. And now that fish is in a position where it's defended. Something's going after the eggs.
Right.
And so I got to get in there and protect. So lots to cover. And I'm telling you, bed fishing in and of itself is just like fishing. The best way, you can listen to all of this experience, but the best way to get better at it is to go out and do it and watch the way fish react, because they have an entire body language. They have an entire love language.
Aww.
Okay? And again, as I'm saying this, the other thing that we didn't talk about is when you've got a male and a female together and they're bumping bellies and they're actually in the act of spawning, move on. We're not going to eat when we're in the middle of that, and neither are they.
Okay.
Maybe after, but not during. And so that's just
it's intimate. They should have their alone time.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm not. That's your way of looking at it. The bottom line is you're not going to catch them, because very rarely are you going to. I'm not saying I wouldn't throw in and check it out, but if they're actually rolling and bumping bellies and doing that, not by all means. I'm not saying if they're just two of them together and paired up, that you could get two out of that. But if they're actually in the process of bumping bellies and things like that, that's not likely gonna end up in success for you. Guys, we've talked a lot about this. It's a big topic, and we appreciate you tuning in, and we will be back again tomorrow for another episode of Mark Fisher Outdoors. Take care, everybody.
Stay channeled.